And welcome in to yet another installment of I Just Kind of Figured. Blake here, joined by Ross. And Ross, what's going on, man? How are you doing today?
What's up, buddy? I am great, and it is good to be here for episode 3. And real quick to start off this episode, I just want to give a shout out to all the haters, all the experts and critics who said we weren't going to make it to 3 episodes. Well, guess what? We have. We beat the odds.
Here we are.
Yeah,
Everybody got a deal. Everybody got a deal. We're going to do it without one.
Without one. But I should also clarify that most of those critics were basically you and me. So we have surpassed our own expectations. Feels pretty good.
Yeah, it feels good. We hate the sound of our voices, yet here we are. We're putting it out there.
And we've expanded,
Ross,
though. That's
the
thing.
We have, Ross, the cool thing here, we are not alone. We brought in some more bullpen help, brought in some assistants. I mentioned him in episode 1. This is my former roommate, my buddy JJ, joining us. JJ, where are you joining us from? What's going on?
Joining from Chicago, Illinois, after that painful loss from the Bears just about 5 minutes ago.
You can hear it in your voice. And you know what? I heard, and JJ, like I'd mentioned before, former roommates up there, had a great time living with you up there. What's the weather like, though, right now?
Right now, it's not too hot. It's about 30 degrees and drizzling.
Yeah, not down here in Houston. I think it's about like 78 or so, maybe even touching low 80s. So
just rub it in, why don't you?
I got you there. So anyway, like I said, JJ joining us as a we'll call it a guest spot. You know, you never know how often he'll pop in here, but he has been one of the few people to actually, take a listen to us. And here he is. So welcome on in, JJ.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So starting with you, Ross. What's been going on? How was your week? What you been up to?
Well, and first of all, I just want to thank JJ for listening to our first episode and taking us to task. You know, he called us on some of our BS, and we had some room to improve. So we appreciate him for that, definitely. But no, good to be back for week 3. Last week
it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. We just spent a good 15 to 20 minutes trying to get all of our mics and headphones synced up. And when I say we, yeah. I was the culprit that was causing everything. So anyway.
Well, and then this morning my computer decided it needed to update for literally about 2.5 hours. So here we are, behind schedule, but we're good. So anyway, I had the pleasure of going to the much anticipated battle royale of Colorado School of Mines versus Black Hills State University football game yesterday. And Blake, I mentioned this morning I had a story to tell from that game. Basically, huge game, monumental. This was big. College game day wanted to be there, but the school was like, listen, you can't be here 6 times in one season.
What were the teams again?
Colorado School of Mines and Black Hills State University. So the best of Colorado D2 versus the best of South Dakota D2. But no, got a couple of buddies up there in Golden, so I was visiting them. And it killed me because this PA announcer at this game was the biggest national treasure that nobody knows about. Because this entire game, he sounded like he was doing an impression of Dana Carvey doing an impression of Tom Brokaw. And it was incredibly bad. And I'm the only one in the stands who was sitting there laughing at this because everybody else is so used to this guy. But I kid you not, the end inflection on every one of his sentences sounded like a bad Tom Brokaw impression. Where he was like, Williams, the ball carrier, run for 27 yards. And every single thing out of this guy's mouth. And so it featured him. It featured a rabbit running on the field. It featured they tried out a donkey.
A rabbit running on the field?
Yeah, we had a rabbit make its way onto the field, and it was in the end zone when a touchdown was scored. This was real D2, as D2 gets. And the Colorado School of Mines thing is their mascot is a burro. So they trot out a mule onto the field every time they score a touchdown. And I don't know how this mule hasn't pulled all 4 hamstrings in one game before, but he was getting some work done. So
wait, whose rabbit was it?
It was just a rabbit. It was nature's rabbit. It was just there. So I made way too long of a story out of that, but a good time up in Golden yesterday for some D2 football.
Did you get any merch? Any merchandise? Any T-shirts?
I got a little fan, a little cardboard fan that you wave in the stands, but it was 40 degrees, so it was useless. So Quite a day,
Awesome.
but no, I encourage everybody to check out some D2 football if you are so inclined.
Wow, that sounds great, and I appreciate. That sounds like a good time. But I'm glad you were able to check it out. I'm glad you're able to see all that D2 has to offer. JJ, how about you, man? How's your week been? Any exciting stories? Anything you want to fill us in on?
Nothing too crazy. I mean, you guys obviously heard the depression in my voice after that Bears loss. But other than that, I'm a big Bulls fan as well, and they didn't look too hot either the past two games, getting spanked by about 30 points to the Spurs, just a complete disaster. I did see Thor on Thursday, and that was a pretty entertaining film.
That's a highlight for you.
Some great cameos in there. Some great cameos.
Nice. Well, again, thanks for taking the time to join us here. I myself, kind of a strange week. Business as usual. Although earlier this week, I'd touched on it before that I'm a big fan of the Dan Patrick Show, and I made it on air. I stumbled through a question, or I weighed in on the poll question of which commissioner you would want to be. I said, and I don't even know if this is true, but it just seemed like the best answer possible. I said, Major League Baseball, you got the opportunity to make all these impacts to the game. But really, that said, I mean, there are so many traditionalists that you would just get so much brushback and everybody would hate you. But hey, I made it onto the air, so big day. But then yesterday, I did what everybody tries to not do, but then they always do it. My girlfriend and I made a dish, a pasta dish. It was like creamy bacon, chicken, Alfredo. Like it was really good. I had 3 bowls of it. So by the time I had ripped through that third bowl, I just felt absolutely miserable about, that point in my life. I mean, I was sunk into the couch and I was not sure if I was going to make it, but really good. But kind of got me thinking. I mean, Ross, have you ever gotten into like an eating challenge? Have you ever seen anybody doing anything like that? Or
I'm always tempted when I see them at restaurants. I've never tried one. Basically, the only thing I've done that's close to that is, remember when you had to drink a gallon of milk in an hour or less? It was something we all heard about in high school. Well, I tried that once.
Your mom actually Ross, it's good for you. Drink the gallon.
And I tried it once with my buddy in high school. Didn't go well, and the best part about it to me is the fact that I told my dad and grandma about it after the fact, kind of like laughing, like, hey, look at this dumb stuff me and my friends are getting into. And they were so appalled by the idea of me doing that. They kept telling me it wasn't safe and I should never do that again. They were disgusted, and they were equally, if not more, disgusted when I told them I had done it a second time with the same friends. So that's the only ultimate real challenge I've ever done. It's stupid as hell, but it's worth a shot if you're in high school. Might as well go for it.
Sure. And I mean, I wouldn't call it an eating challenge, but I know when you were here visiting in Houston, we scraped the absolute bottom of the barrel and reverted back to a high school, activity. We split it though, but we ordered the grande meal from Taco Bell, and I am just not sure why that was even a thought in our mind. So that was, wouldn't recommend that to anybody, not even splitting it.
Wait a minute.
You and I.
We did?
We got the grande. Yes, we did. It happened. It was like, 4 soft shell, 4 hard shell, and a few burritos. It was the same day we went to the brewery, so maybe it's all running together for you. But,
okay, that night. Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah, kids, spend your money a lot more efficiently than Ross and I did. But JJ, I know I was going to bring it up, but then since you joined us, I might even let you just go ahead and take it here. As far as an eating challenge, the only one, the official one that I've ever seen was in Chicago, and the laughter's already rolling.
I was ready to say it.
Yeah. My buddy Dave came up with some of his friends for his bachelor party to Chicago. We ended up at this restaurant in Chicago that has since closed down, the Squared Circle.
It's closed?
JJ, yeah, they closed it down. It's gone. So I was even trying to find the menu to really specify what it was, but I can't remember. But JJ, go ahead and break it down.
I
for
remember
us.
what it was.
Break it down.
the challenge, and it's interesting.
The Four Horsemen Challenge.
Yeah, since it just came off the Ric Flair 30 for 30. But yeah, it was the Four Horsemen Challenge, and it was, I believe, a 4-patty cheeseburger. Which
it may have been 8. It may have been 8.
Yeah, there were a lot of patties, but the cheeseburger part wasn't the hard part. It was somewhere between 4 and 8 pounds of fries.
Yeah, it was like a mountain of fries and just bacon just thrown in there too. And these are like legitimate, like these aren't like frozen patties. These things were hand packed and they were thick. You were not getting cheated.
Yeah, and at first we're like, okay, I think even the guy who was friends with the Dave, he thought he was going to get it done. We're all like, this guy can get it done.
There was a time limit too, like 45 minutes.
Yeah, I think it may have been less than that. I think it was 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And about 15 minutes in, he just looked miserable. Like the picture that we snapped on Instagram, he's just cowering over the plate of fries, just completely dejected, depressed. He was a beaten man.
Yeah. So, and no lie, I mean, they came out, they made a big presentation of it. They got a guy come out here. So-and-so is going to come out and try to do the Four Horsemen Challenge. He brings out this giant tray of food, lays it in front of him. And the whole time I remember, and we'd been drinking like all day. So it's not like he was on an empty stomach or anything. JJ is over there just saying like the only 2 things that he said the whole time that he was trying was 28 minutes left. And then he would just give him the countdown while this guy's just trying to shovel food into his mouth. And then he's also just saying, man, that piece of bacon right there, get it. That piece, oh, you need to eat that. That's your piece. Finally, he didn't even really put up much of a fight for the $40 or $35 it was. He's like, no, I'm good. So then we all dug in and helped him out. Obviously, it was no longer a challenge at that point, but we were there though. We were there to see it happen.
That's the worst part of an eating challenge is after you lose, then you've got the $40 or $50 bill. And you're like, okay, what did I just do?
Yeah, you have to really be confident, or you have to have friends that are willing to throw down, which we did not. He made it. We did not. To be fair, we did not bait him into it. He's just like, Four Horsemen Challenge, what's this? And then it got explained to him. He's like, sure, I'll do that. While the rest of us are ordering just sides or like something, just to hold ourselves over. He's like, let me just try this challenge. So. Yeah, that was quite the event. Unfortunately, the squared circle in Chicago has since met its demise. But staying on the topic this week of food, you know what, Ross, JJ, I just kind of figured we'd talk about elementary school lunches. So if you want to go ahead and dial it back to the 90s with me, let's go ahead and talk about it. So, I mean, even before getting right into it, I mean, you transform yourself into that gymnasium auditorium combo that has been transformed into the lunchroom with hundreds of screaming kids. Anything that comes to mind immediately first, Ross, for you?
I'd say you nailed the image pretty well. Also, the either the basketball hoops at either end, or the brown cabinets of roller skates if it was skating week. And all like the motivational like drink milk posters, like, hey, Bill Clinton drinks milk, you should too. So just the whole
that's who you want to get inspiration from right there.
I feel like
they
really
90s
brainwashed us with Clinton back in the 90s, but no, you really set the stage. There was literally a stage and basketball hoops and a gym floor and all the fold up tables, and just takes you right back. I love it. I love school lunches to this day.
Those the linoleum gym floor, never hardwood. So, JJ, how about you? Anything that comes to mind to you immediately with elementary school lunches?
Just the nasty smell. Like
it depends on the day.
You talk about the linoleum floor with the tables, and I distinctly remember like after they would fold them up, just all the food crumbles and dust and just disgustingness all over the floor, and it. I don't necessarily have the most fond memories of school lunches.
Well, glad we could bring you in here and
dredge it
off
off
the depression of the Bears game too. We're really going to leave you in a dark place when this is all said and done. So looking forward to that, man. One of the first things that I really thought of was just kind of like with the chaos was the Now we had pink lunch tickets when I was in school. I don't know how it went across to down there in Quincy, Ross, but we had our pink lunch tickets and always had to write our name on the back. And for whatever reason, because then you just walk in, you drop your lunch ticket into this coffee tin that a sixth grader's holding. That you can't look them in the eye, or else you'll get in trouble. What are you looking at? Nothing, sir. But yeah, you drop that lunch ticket in. You get your styrofoam tray already pre-divided. You get that tray with your on a good day, spaghetti or not spaghetti, pizza and curly noodles. On a bad day, I don't know, a bad day, I'd just bring my own lunch. Maybe hot dog day, something like that. But you get that styrofoam tray and you just beeline it to whatever table that your friends had gotten to first. Hey man, say somebody's already brought their lunch, already sitting down. Save me a seat next to you, because if they didn't, you were wandering. I mean, you might as well have been on an island, because if your friends didn't save you a seat, you were pretty much screwed there. So
yeah, it's kind of like, I remember the feeling of if someone filled in, or like the row ended, like someone filled in the last spot in the row and you had to go 8 miles down to the other side of the gym and start a new row at the new table. Yeah, you felt like the wounded gazelle, like on the prairie, just like waiting to be targeted by older kids. Like, you can't sit here. It was a rough time. It was a really rough time.
You mentioned the end of the table too. You just give your dude, come on, scoot in. Just scoot in a little bit. Scoot, and you're sitting with one ass cheek hanging off the end of the table, just so that you don't have to.
Whatever you had to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the CTA bus with the guys that do the wide leg approach. And you're like, dude, put your legs together so I can sit down, please.
Yep, exactly. Just really sprawl out there and just say, this seat's taken. No, it's not. It's just by you. So, yeah, that kind of remembers, though, when I'm talking about, like, the table, too. Did either of you guys have a table of... Now, we label them the quote-unquote bad kids, I guess, but really just like the troublemaker kid. Like, it seemed like they always coordinated together to that one table that was like on its... Because, you'd have like rows of like 3 or 4 of those tables lined up, so you had really long rows. It always seemed like those troublemaker kids had just the single table in the middle of the gym, and those were the guys that were always like throwing food around. They were making noise. You didn't want to get sucked into that table at all.
Yeah, a lot of community college grads there.
Oh my God.
But it's interesting because we had, that was brutal. I love it. We had like just the rows of tables fill in, no actual like sit where you want tables until middle school. To where, yeah, we did have the bad kid table. And at my junior high, we had the cafeteria, but we also had what was called the annex. And the annex was just like this long room with tables, one table, one after another, like sticking out from the wall all the way down, just this long hallway. And that's where, like, if you were cool, you ate in the annex. But there was still the bad kids table in the annex. And you just, you separate into those cliques, and you just try and be at a table that people respect. Like, I don't care if I'm not at the cool kids table. Just, I want to be at a table that's like, oh, that table, yeah, they're cool people over there. Nobody cares.
Your mom checking with you at Ross, which table did you sit at today?
And it was table 8. Middle school, it was literally numbered table 8. So that was
Did you have numbers?
Oh yeah, table 8, baby.
Wow.
That's a vivid memory right there.
Sadly, yes, it is.
Table 8.
Like
table 8.
8 is seared into my brain.
Pretty much. I mean, yeah, that was a big part of like your identity in middle school, was just that was the group of friends you sat with for 30 minutes a day, So it becomes a big part.
It didn't even get... It's not like it was even... Like, it was, first day of school, you predetermine who you sit with, and it's in the same table, the same spot you set it. It's not assigned, but it's where you sat. And then if some other kid just decided to, plop down there... Somebody's trying to throw off the feng shui of your table. It just you get there, and you're just like, what the hell are you doing? What the hell are you... This is where you're screwing up everything. And then
it would ruin lunch. It really would.
You would just be stewing over your lunch there, and then you just couldn't take your eyes off that kid, figuring out how you were going to get even with him at recess somehow, how to just make his life a living hell. We don't condone bullying, because I say that, but I had no, if somebody made me mad, I would just be like, well, I am not confrontational, so this is where it ends. But I'll tell you what, another thing too, and it kind of really stuck with me as far as elementary school lunch goes, but also reminded me of it when I went back in college. I was a lunchtime supervisor, which was that was an event. I'll tell you that. That was a job. That was a job. We're working lunchtime and recess supervisor for elementary schools. Is just how much time you would spend trying to just pick open that styrofoam milk carton, or not that cardboard milk carton, where you're just, all right, easy enough to split it open, but then to get that final step where you just pull it out and then pinch it open to actually drink, you spend a good half of the lunch period like you're just picking at it, pick, and then finally you've done it enough where you've destroyed the integrity of the actual side that you're supposed to open. So then you have to just pinch that shut as much as you can, flip the card around, and then open it from the rear and just hope for the best. I do remember some kids it would get to the point where they would completely split open like the entire milk carton. Like it was just legitimately a cardboard box then full of milk that was fully opened. I really remember that. Any of you guys have trouble with the milk carton, or was that just kind of a personal issue?
No, I do remember a few times having to flip the damn thing around and open it from the back end like a loser. And all that work for like 4 gulps of milk just doesn't seem all that worth it now.
I'm sensing a slogan here. Milk, sometimes you got to open it from the rear.
Try the backside.
Our first T-shirt. I always went chocolate milk though, because I was the white milk tastes like cardboard.
More fitting for the phrase.
Yeah. You got that right. We're taking a sharp turn here. So JJ, did you ever have any issues with the milk there? Did you drink milk?
Well, I'm not a big milk guy, but it was the same issue for orange juice. They had orange juice in the same cartons.
Right.
And yeah, it would get all soggy, and I don't know how to describe it, but it was not fun.
Did they not have the Bill Clinton posters? Like, were you not motivated enough, or what?
No, you know what's funny? I can't remember where I saw it, but someplace there was a poster of, it wasn't of Reggie Redbird?
Yeah, those reading posters.
Yeah.
Those reading posters that got a lot of play in the 90s, where your favorite, Christopher Walken.
But was there a quote from your dad or something on one of these?
I don't think so. If there was, I've blocked it out. I'm sure my dad would not be the perfect person to, go ahead and read or end up like me. I don't know. That's no good. I don't think he was actually on a read poster. He wasn't on the same level as, like I was saying, like a Robert Redford or a Steve Urkel even. he didn't get that sort of clout. But it's always the drinks. The drinks gave kids a hard time because my girlfriend was telling me that she really had an issue and even told me a specific story where she was trying to open up a Capri Sun, and those things were either you were good at opening them and punching the straw through, or you weren't. I think she has since gotten better. I have not checked with her, but she said once in 2nd grade that there was a teacher of hers. She said, "Hey, can you help me open up this Capri Sun?" And the teacher flat out told her, "If you can't open it, you shouldn't drink it." So So I mean, Capri Suns though, those were those were tough on their own end, because you kind of had to really squeeze the bottom of them to then get like that nice rounded top to poke it through that small hole. But you couldn't squeeze too much, because once you got the straw through, it had to be like almost driving a manual, like when you release the clutch and hit the gas. Like if you didn't release at the perfect time, then you end up spraying half your Capri Sun all over. I honestly have not opened a Capri Sun in so long that it may give me trouble.
Well, the thing about Capri Sun is it's like one of those things, like when you're a kid, like I think back on these stories, and it's in what your girlfriend said is exactly accurate, because like when you're a kid, it seems like there's a 50% chance you're going to screw up opening that Capri Sun. But like once I've become an adult, I don't know when that occurred, but I take a Capri Sun and open it, and it's easy. And I'm like, what was the issue I was having when I was a 5th grader?
Motor skills.
Yeah.
It all comes down to motor skills.
Like,
so
they must have been pretty bad, because it's not that hard to open a Capri Sun.
I feel like part of it too was when you were a kid, half the time you didn't realize that you were using the dull end of the straw to try and poke it through. Because remember, they had the sharp end, which was the money
spear.
right there. But then if you used the flat end, you were just shit out of luck.
Well, maybe they've also redesigned the paper or whatever that you have to penetrate. Like maybe it was like a little bit more thick or tough to penetrate when we were kids.
It felt like Kevlar some days.
Yeah, and now maybe it's like a thin, easy to push through material.
The technology has certainly advanced for the better, I would imagine. We can chalk it up to that. The hours of research and development at Capri Sun has certainly paid off.
And it reminds me of, speaking of not being able to get those open, bit of a tangent here, but in like 3rd grade, we used to have snacks during class. And my mom would send me to school with those metal cans of fruit, like the little individual servings of fruit.
Yep.
And they had like the Civil War style tab on them where you had to like, tilt it back and then peel the aluminum off or the steel or whatever. And I always struggled with that because I would break the tab off and leave that little slit of open, God. And I would tell my teacher this and she'd be like, oh, we'll just go down to the cafeteria. They'll be able to help you with that. And I went from my 3rd grade classroom on the other side of the school all the way down to the cafeteria with my little fruit slit. And just, to where like the juice was leaking out. And that was all I could get. I couldn't get any of the pears. And
just
so
gets all over your pants.
It was bad, and so I go down to the cafeteria, and there were no lunch ladies there, and this happened more than once. So nobody was there to open my fruit for me, so I just had to either drink the fruit juice out of this little tiny slit in this can, or just throw it away. So there were several days I didn't get a snack.
The imagery on that story was amazing.
Thank you. Yes, it's great that we bring this stuff up. I hadn't thought of that story in years until the last couple minutes. So,
oh my god,
thanks, guys.
That's great. So Ross, go ahead and kick us off here because I'll start us off and toss it to you. But hot lunch versus cold lunch, or school provided lunch that day versus bringing your own lunch from home. I would say 90%, maybe even 95 hot lunch. There were very few lunches that I didn't either say like I'll eat that, or my mom didn't say you'll eat that. But for the most part, it was buy the lunch ticket, go there. Lisa doesn't have anything to do that day. She'd love that. How about you, Ross? Were you a little bit more of a peanut butter sandwich guy, or?
Because there were always the kids that seemed to bring their lunch every day. And it's like, how do your parents have time to make you this every single day? So I only had sack lunches for field trips, basically. I was probably, 90% hot lunch, because then you got, pizza, the mashed potatoes, just all the good
pizza
stuff.
And mashed potatoes.
Some days, yeah, for hot lunch.
Where they're just having trouble scraping stuff together. Like the delivery hadn't come yet, and they're just like, well, I guess we're having pizza and mashed potatoes, sure.
But as a kid,
throw some pear juice in there too.
As a kid, you love it, and and I remember into high school, we still had cafeteria style food as an option. I still got hot lunch in high school, like a chicken patty with French fries or something. Just clutch, always hit the spot.
we don't want to touch on high school too much because it's not the 90s. But you're right. I mean, something that did not lose a step was there is no doubt in my mind that I saw the same kid in 2nd grade doing the same thing senior year of high school, where they would take their chicken nuggets and just slop mashed potatoes on top of them, or dip their chicken nuggets in their mashed. It's just, you learn at a young age and you carry it through. JJ, how about you?
The chicken and the mashed potato move is that's a classic move right there. But as far as hot lunch versus cold lunch, I generally brought my lunch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm one of those. But the thing is, with the hot lunch, you can't trust it. Like you can't always trust it.
What was your main cold lunch then that you would bring?
Like I'm trying to think. Like I did like the chicken patty, like the breaded chicken patty, for the hot lunch. You guys familiar with this?
Oh yeah.
It's basically like a frozen breaded chicken patty. I did like that. And the pizza was always kind of a classic, but kind of nasty. But generally, I'm trying to think about what the cold lunches were.
Well, no, they didn't. I guess I should reference hot lunch. We call it hot lunch and cold lunch in elementary. A cold lunch is when you would bring it from home. Like,
Oh,
that's
okay.
Just,
I thought you meant like actual, like not
a sub sandwich or
Yeah, because we're all childhood cafeteria meals literally hot.
Not always.
Sub sandwiches. You had sub sandwich day.
Chef salad.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I like sub sandwiches. I'm a big sub sandwich guy.
Big sandwich guy. Yeah. I will say, and Ross too, I think I'd cut you off there. So if you want to finish up that thought after this, by all means, But my cold lunch, when you said you would always bring a sack lunch, so I imagine you would just actually have a sack, right?
Are you talking about me?
No, sorry, Ross, because Ross said he will only do it for field
Oh,
trips.
yeah, a paper bag.
Okay, see, I actually had a lunchbox, and this, again, you're talking about stories that just come up, thinking about these that I hadn't thought of in years. I went with my sister, my older sister, one time, and I can't remember where it was. It was maybe even at a Walmart or something like that, but it was like a kids' day thing, probably just for my mom to get us out of the house for a while. But it was like a kids' event where you could come and design your own cloth lunchbox with those paints, that you would squeeze out, and they would be like the three-dimensional paints, that you'd squeeze out of the tube. So anyway, I was probably 4 years old, maybe 5 when I went, and my older sister, Corey, was probably, she's 2 years older than I am. But I'm just in there, and I'll go out and say it, I'm more artistic than she is, but
Shots
at the
fired.
time, yeah, no, not even. She would admit it. But at the time, I don't know. I guess maybe I was intimidated because there were other kids there, or I just wasn't feeling it. Not. Anyway, I see Corey just go to work, writes her name, Corey, and then like a little heart or 2 hearts or something. So I'm like, all right. So I wrote Blake with a little silver heart on there, and honestly, I used that lunchbox probably through like 5th or 6th grade. I think eventually the heart got peeled off, but the E may have been adorably flipped around. I hope I was not 5 with the wrong way letter, so maybe my ages are a bit off.
Well, you are a lefty, so you are prone to those mistakes.
But where in the word Blake do you have the opening to put a heart though?
Underneath.
Just underneath, okay.
Yeah. No, I didn't dot an I or anything. I'm like, yeah, these are. So it was a red lunchbox with just like a flat, like just flapped closed with a piece of Velcro, and it just said Blake with a little heart. So I'm sure when my dad saw that, he's
Lisa, we need to find that lunchbox.
Yeah, we'll see if we can track it down for sure. But Ross, anyway, do you have anything else on those hot or cold lunches?
No, just I feel like I have such a good recollection and experience with school lunches back in elementary school, because I feel like my school got it right. We had like pizza burgers, we had pigs in a blanket,
Wow.
Chicken nuggets, we had pudding pops.
Turns out Ross was homeschooled.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. And so I think so fondly of that stuff, but I always remember, I don't know, did you guys have the teacher's choice lunch day ever?
No.
Okay, it was terrible, and it probably like word spread of what was happening at my school, Monroe Elementary School, and like schools around the country did not do this because one teacher took advantage of this day so bad. So school lunch was great. We had the things I just mentioned, really good stuff, always good. But like once a month we'd have teacher's choice lunch day, and we had this one teacher who
You have to eat a chicken plank salad.
I would have taken that in a heartbeat over what we had. This one weird first grade teacher, Mrs. Banks. I don't know if she stuffed the ballot box or what, but it was always her choice. And anytime teacher's choice lunch day rolled around, it was, oh, Miss Banks gets to choose this month. It's like, well, let somebody else choose, my God. And she would always choose.
Just a gifted picker.
I guess, apparently, because she figured out the system, and because every single time it was Mrs. Banks' choice, which was every month, we would have Swedish meatballs. And
That's an interesting choice.
Sorry, I said meatballs plural. No, the way my school did it was meatball singular, and it was the size of a damn baseball. And and it was coated in this nasty, like, sweet barbecue sauce. Just one giant baseball of meat on our tray once a month, courtesy of Mrs. Banks.
Mrs. Banks was just going to town.
Mrs. Banks Ball.
She loved them, and that's my only negative experience from school lunch. Otherwise, it's a topic I love, just because of like give it like a pizza burger. Forget the vegetables, but yeah, throw in the milk, give me a cookie, and I'm set.
Pizza burger at a grade school lunch.
It's no wonder Michelle Obama had to revamp the whole thing. Like, it was terrible. We were all so unhealthy. We had
That's
green eggs
like,
and
no.
ham one day. It was fantastic.
Wow. We always stuck with probably the same like 7 lunch, 8, maybe 10 lunch rotation, just on a constant, because we would always bring home the lunch menus for the next week, and that's how we would differentiate. You would go ahead and circle what you wanted, X out what days you wanted cold lunch, and then my mom would get the final ballot. Like, you know what? You can probably eat this. You'll probably be okay eating that. So
Did you guys
and
ever...
also go ahead.
So I was just going to ask, did you guys ever get breakfast for lunch? Like pancakes,
Yes,
sticks?
pancakes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we
You at least
we
had
would get
those.
pancakes. Yeah, and then you'd roll up the sausage with the pancake, and you dip it. Yeah, I think everybody did that. Another move that just continued on later in life. But and then a shout out. Yeah, there were definitely those kids who never, ever ate the hot lunch. Never knew what a lunch ticket was. That was my buddy, the Dave, who I did reference, or we referenced even earlier. But that kid would be done with lunch by the time I actually got my food and got back to the table, because he would always rip through his meal, which then consisted probably of a, stuff that even kids shouldn't. Dave, how did you get 2 root beers? Why did your mom just pay? What do you have? Ritz Bits, and so he would always be cold lunch, represent that way. Did you guys ever have the issue of when it would be too loud in the lunchroom, and then the principal would come down and the lights would go off? Did that ever happen on either of your ends?
Absolutely, it did.
I can't remember.
JJ?
I can't remember if it was the lights off, but I do remember the principal coming in on a number of occasions.
Very, very stern look.
Yeah.
The lights would go out, and then eventually he would hold you 2 minutes beyond your before you should be released, and then you're just thinking like, no, everybody, please, he's serious, please be quiet. And then those 2 minutes, but at an older age now, you realize that it was a pretty, I'll keep you here all afternoon. Well, no, you won't, because the next lunch period's coming here in 5 minutes, so you got to get us cleared out. But I remember that, getting a little too loud in here, everybody. Let's quiet down. It would start with that, the verbal warning, and then finally the lights would go off, and then everybody, shh, everybody hushing everybody else, kind of like in college when the cops would come to a party.
It was the same exact situation, just 15 years prior, the
and
cops.
you always have that one person in both situations who just takes it too far.
Yep. Come on, just shut up. Be quiet.
We had a teacher at one point who would like stand next to the table that was being the quietest as like a competition. And so first of all, it's lunch. Like, you're depriving kids of socialization, but like it was like a reward to not say anything, and you wanted to be the quietest table, and she made such a big deal out of it. And yeah, the taking away of recess for a few minutes was always the threat. And I think of that now, that's like asking me to work without pay for like 2 days. Like, that is just a terrible proposition that I don't want to get involved in. Do not take away 2 minutes of recess. So yeah, we shut the hell up every time.
Lights go off, the mouth goes shut, everybody. And yeah, you'd have the teacher that would say, I'm going to go ahead and start dismissing by the quietest. And of course, referencing back to the bad kid table, they would never be first, because they didn't care, because they were rebels, and I looked up to them. So anyway, last thing, just to kind of close on this, if you could, and JJ, you kind of touched on it yourself too, what were your favorite lunches at the time, or even just the most cliche elementary school 90s lunch? I'm thinking the square piece of pizza, rectangle piece of pizza even, with the curly noodles, and then the soggy salad with, you don't know what kind of dressing it was on top of it. But pizza day was a huge day. Yeah,
I would think the rectangle pizza, about the size of like a thank you card or like a birthday card. But then always the cookie in the individual plastic sack that said cookie on it. Like, we couldn't tell what it was through the sack already.
What do you think's in the bag?
And and the fruit cup, very small fruit cup of pineapple or, whatever else it might be. I'd say that pretty much nails it.
Fruit cup.
Well,
JJ?
are we going with the ultimate cold lunch?
You can go.
Sure.
Cold
Yeah,
lunch.
go for it.
Well, we're missing out on Lunchables.
Okay, I agree.
The
I
ultimate
agree because
the
Go
ultimate
ahead.
90s cold lunch. And the thing was, when they first came out, it was just like 3 crackers, 3 pieces of meat, and 3 pieces of cheese. And like now, and they were like $3-4. And now you're like, holy shit, that was a ripoff. Like, but the thing was, once they changed to the deluxe lunches, that's when you could see which kids were rolling and which kids weren't.
Mm-hmm.
So when the kid comes in with the thick pizza with like the soda or the like Capri Sun in the soda can, like with the candy bar, you're like, okay, this kid's parents are rich. Like,
it was a good way to tell, yeah. And I would also like to just apologize to everybody listening. This will be the last time that JJ will be on the show with us because he jumped the gun here. No, he segues us nicely because you're right. I mean, we were going to focus.
In my defense, you guys forgot the Cubs in week 1, so
Right.
I didn't want you to forget Lunchables. And this is 3, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and you're right.
So
and we
gotta
are
play it
actually
safe.
And you bit your tongue that long, so we appreciate it because I know you were chomping at the bit. So yeah, bringing up Lunchables, you are 100% right here, JJ. I'm going to go ahead, give a quick breakdown, a quick, I guess, history, if you will, as you touched on a little bit of it. But Lunchables introduced, and this is actually coming from Wikipedia, so take it for what you will. But the time spent researching will only grow with our funding, which is at 0 right now. So yeah, the time spent is on Wikipedia, but check out Lunchables Wikipedia. It's got some good stuff on there. Initially introduced in Seattle in '88, before going national big time, 1989. So shout out to you and me, JJ. We are actually older than Lunchables.
Wow.
Barely 29 years. In the mix. Ross, you just missed it, right?
Yes, I did. I'm upset.
Little bit younger than Lunchables, so that's a bummer.
Lunchables literally may be one of the most brilliant inventions since the pet rock. Like,
yeah, put them head to head.
Such little work, and
It's true.
such lucrative business.
Yeah, had only we come up with it. But yeah, designed by Bob Drain, Tom Bailey, and Jeff James as a way for Oscar Mayer to sell more bologna and other lunch meat, because I guess times were tough back in the 80s and kids weren't having it. So the design of the package, as you finally remember, was kind of that of the style of the American TV dinner. So now dinner comes to lunch. And get this, and I'd love to hear your guys' insight on which is your favorite. Some other names kicked around, that were considered were entrees, ONTRAYS, Cracker Witches, mini meals, lunch kits, snackables, squared meals, walk meals, go packs, and fun meals. Is Lunchables the correct winner out of all those?
I think so. I mean, Go Pack has potential, I guess, but Lunchable, yeah, wow, they really dodged about 7 bullets.
Lunchables is
Fun
great
meals.
because, like, when you hear snackables, like that's legitimately what a Lunchable is. It's a snackable, but Lunchable deceives the consumer into thinking that it's an actual meal.
Yeah,
Like,
and it was for so many kids.
yeah, and entree. What was the entree one? It was just
ON-tray. So it's a play on.
yeah.
words.
See, that one was the most promising out of the selection, I thought.
Not a fan of mini meals, squared meals, fun meals. How much fun do you have eating a Lunchable?
It sounds like Fun Dip translated to Lunchables.
Yeah, that would work too. So as of right now, I believe I chalked it up. 26 different varieties, as you said, JJ. In the early days, they until the confidence got up and they really spread their wings, it was pretty cut and dry. But then now they have 26 different varieties, including crackers, pizzas, chicken nuggets, small hot dogs, burgers, nachos, subs, and wraps. So really,
Chicken
you
nuggets.
got a whole. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I do remember when Lunchables pizzas came out.
It was the
In
biggest
elementary
thing.
school. It was huge. And the kid who always brought them made just the biggest mess, just slopping their their sauce on that little cracker, and then just getting cheese everywhere. Single piece of pepperoni on there. Just a huge mess. Just stray strands of cheese everywhere. But that kid had had pizza for lunch while you were eating God knows what. So yeah, I mean, I'd say that's the one that really made a huge impact in elementary school. For a short time, JJ, you also touched on this. For a short time, it offered 2 versions, the deluxe and the XL or whatever it was called. But I read that this was actually targeted towards adults. Why would you even try that route? Can you imagine being I should even just do like a social experiment.
Just do it right now.
A social experiment where I just show up to a meeting. JJ, you need to do this because you're an attorney. You need to show up at like a big meeting, maybe an all-day meeting where you bring your lunch. You just pull out that Lunchable XL, and how do you even justify that as an adult? Like, man, that looks great. That looks filling. That looks good. What do you got there? Oh, this is a Lunchable XL. It's like Lunchables, but for grown adults.
I want to see that commercial. I think we're doing Lunchables marketing for them right now.
I think they're done. I think they gave up on trying the adult demographic. Like, these kids from the 90s have since grown up. I'm seeing Lunchable XL.
I feel like bringing a Lunchable to a workplace setting just puts you on a fast track for CEO. So just go for it.
Hey Bob, what do you got over there? Oh, I just have some leftover pasta from last night. Some fettuccine Alfredo. How about you? Going with the Lunchable Deluxe. So I got pizza.
Got the wicked tacos today.
Yeah, so this is a Lunchable Deluxe. I'm hoping I can finish it. If not, I got a nice snack, in the afternoon. There's just so much. And did I mention it comes with a peanut butter cup? So who's the adult now? Who is the adult now? But yeah, just kind of a weird concept. I guess you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, but Lunchables really missed that shot, I would say.
My question with the XL is, did you guys prefer the Coke, like the generic Coke that they put in there?
Loved it.
Or the Capri Sun in the can?
I would have gone with either. But
I'd be honest, my mom maybe bought me a Lunchable once in my entire life.
Oh, man.
I didn't get to mess around with Lunchables too much. But like I said, I didn't eat a lot of lunches that I'd take in. Plus, shout out to my mom, makes the best peanut butter sandwich ever out there, so why mess with that? But yeah, I would say, give me the Capri Sun. That was kind of more my style.
I would have drank either. I just remember though when the cola did come out, it was a full size can. Which, why are you giving that to a 10-year-old at lunch during the school day? But it tasted exactly like Pepsi from what I remember. So, or was it Coke or Pepsi flavor? I can't remember. But I was always the cola fan. I enjoyed it.
Okay, yeah.
Get real pumped up for recess that way. So I'm going to run down a real quick timeline of Lunchables, and then we can, cover a little bit more on it in depth. But this is from timetoast.com, so I'm going to say it's legit. But, okay, so January 1, 1988, kicking off the new year. That's when Lunchables were first introduced. So that was 88 after kind of messing around, only being in Seattle in 88, and then 89 it went worldwide. 91, January 1st, 91. So I guess they would always wait for the new year to kick things off. Lunchables with dessert came out. So that was a big thing, save the parents the money, no longer having to provide dessert, because now not only is Lunchables doing most of your work, it's doing all the work for you. You just slap that into a kid's backpack, go to school. You're taken care of for lunch. So 3 years later, it seems like they always waited 3 years too to make, big monumental changes. January 1, 94, Lunchables with drinks. And this box actually shows it with that Capri Sun as well. And then 97, controversy in the media. That sounds like the line in the "We Didn't Start the Fire," instead of Cola Wars. It's just Lunchables controversy in the media. I wish that would have made it into the lyrics there. Just saying that nobody would eat an entire diet of Lunchables, and it's just high sodium content, and like your daily serving of saturated fat in one little box of death. So that's kind of when it got a little bit of a bad rap there. And then, it kind of goes, let me see if I can find anything better that, really goes with it. Fruit was added to the product line in 2011.
Boo.
And then fruit smoothies 2012.
Glad we missed that ship.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, thank goodness. The evolution of Lunchables is what they call this. It only covers till 2013, but you get the idea. Yeah, good for Lunchables. I mean, I still see them out there. I don't hardly notice them like I did when I was a kid. Every time I'd see them, I'd kind of give them the hard look. Maybe my mom would be feeling generous, but never really the case. Any other stories that come to mind? You guys both had them, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was rare because never really brought my lunch to school, so a Lunchable was a field trip thing, maybe, if I didn't already have the sack lunch. It's just interesting to see how Lunchables have evolved from like wet, salty ham pieces into like the coolest lunch you could have had in the late 90s. Because like they really, like they had like thick pizza crust, I remember at one point. And then like the government cracked down like in 01, 02, and they really dialed them back.
Deep dish Lunchable.
Yeah, they had the deep dish, and that was like the height of childhood unhealthy food. It was like the late 90s. And I was looking on their website before this and realized that Lunchables has officially sold out because they have organic options now, which who wants that?
Wow.
But I remember my favorite was the Taco Bell taco version, and you got like 3 little soft tortillas, and you had that pouch of red meat toothpaste that you would squeeze onto your tortillas, and you'd have the soft cheese. And it's no wonder these things were a sodium concern, because how do you preserve any type of food for that long? Let alone like tacos. You can't have tacos not fresh like that. But yeah, the tacos were good, and I watched a commercial for when the tacos were unveiled. It was from like the late 90s, and the commercial, I remembered it distinctly after seeing it. I'll have to post it in the description of this one when we post this episode, because it'll take you back. But yeah, tacos were my number one go-to.
Nice. JJ, any
See,
thoughts
I don't think tacos was the number one go-to. I think the premium choice was the deep dish pizza. And I still can't get over the fact that they literally marketed a few crackers, pieces of meat, and cheese for like $3.50.
Yeah,
like
well,
that.
and the term deep dish is used very, very loosely, as it was all just the same.
Well,
same
also
cracker.
another thing that I was thinking about was, and Ross mentioned this, how it was like the taco, the cheeseburger, and the hot dog, and like I had all of the different variations, but they were all cold.
It's amazing that you're still alive today.
Yeah. But it was like they were all cold. And you still love them. Like you're eating a cold cheeseburger. Or like eating a cold hot dog. Like it doesn't rationally make sense thinking about it.
You're
But
eating E. coli.
yeah. Yeah. But it was more just Lunchables are effectively the epitome of the 90s.
Oh,
like
yeah.
the marketing, the packaging, just everything about it was the complete embodiment of, like, it just makes me think of like Rocco's Modern Life and just all these different cartoons. Like it just is the same nostalgic vibe.
Right.
Like
Puts you right back in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. Like, yeah, if you said the commercials, I mean, the super 90s, like very in your face, just really marketing to kids. And yeah, I mean, it is, if you could pick just the ultimate 90s kid, it would probably be sitting down on their couch, eating a Lunchables pizza, watching, Rocco's Modern Life or Doug or something like that. I mean, it's what it was. So,
And you gotta have the Sunny D too.
Sunny D.
We're going
fake
down a rabbit
orange
hole
juice.
here. And you touched on it too, JJ, about it being cold. One more story about Lunchables to wrap it up. This comes from my buddy who I played baseball with in college. His name is The Deuce, good buddy of mine. Told me a story once that he was on a field trip, kind of like you, Ross. He took a Lunchable on a field trip. However, his teacher must have not been hip to the whole concept of Lunchables. I don't think it was a field trip, but it was like a field day at school where, bring your lunch because we're going to be outside. We're going to be doing kids stuff. And anyway, he said that lunchtime came around and he pulls out of his lunch bag a Lunchable pizza, and his teacher sees it and is just like, nope, can't do that. Like you can't have that. He's like, what are you talking about? And I think he told me he was in like 3rd or 4th grade. He's like, what do you mean? It's like, you can't have that. You got to heat that up, or you have to heat those up, or else you can't eat them. And he's going back and forth. He's like, no, that's what they are. They're Lunchables. Like, look at it. And she's like, no, I can't let you have that. Go throw it away and buy a hot lunch. So he said she actually made him dispose of it and buy a hot lunch for, so that's like thrown away, just like.
How old was he?
He's like third or fourth grade, I think. So this teacher was not 100% on board with what the Lunchable was and the point of it all. But she did not allow him to eat his Lunchable pizza, which really, if you did try to microwave one of those things, I mean, I imagine you could only microwave it for about 3 seconds before it just became piping hot, or the bread just disintegrated. So
that doesn't even make sense, though. What if he brought in a cold pizza? She wouldn't let him eat cold pizza. I mean, some people just like cold pizza.
At least cold pizza, though, that it was once cooked. Like, I'm not defending the teacher here at all. I'm just sharing a story.
Oh, she thought it was like raw and could like.
Yeah. So she said, you got to microwave that. You got to cook that. He's like, no, you don't. But at the end of it, he had to go and buy a hot lunch. So that was probably a really tough day for him. So.
Jeez.
But that's.
He was
like
at the mountaintop.
we've come a long way.
He was at the mountaintop, and when she did that, it was like he just slid on down.
Yep, exactly. From the summit to the base, or whatever those terms are. I don't know. Anyway, good conversation.
Never mind.
Good conversation on. Ross is going to hold that in. I appreciate it. Good conversation on Lunchables and school lunch themselves. Any closing thoughts? Anything come to mind for either of you guys?
For it really just depended on the kind of kid you were. And I realized, I think JJ brought it up first, is the fact that around this age was when you first learned about like class divisions among people, because you saw who had the good lunch and who had the crap lunch, and you understood like who had the good stuff and who didn't. And I'm sure we'll mention him a ton in the future, but my best friend in first grade, his name was Quentin, and his mom always sent him to school with the Cheetos checkers. Anyway, he always had the good version of Cheetos. I'm getting off topic here, but don't mean to get down that road. But you learned a lot about kids from their lunch, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Cheese puffs for Ross Green. No cheese.
Yeah, they were kettle cooked cheese puffs. But yeah, Lunchables were always a staple, always good to have whenever you did have them, and just a lot to choose from. And also reminds me of kid cuisine TV dinners, but that's a whole nother episode, so we won't go down that road.
I remember those. Shout out. Did either of you guys trade at lunch? Final topic. Did either of you trade anything, or did you just kind of stick to what you had?
I pretty much just stuck to what I had. I don't recall any trades off the top of my head.
I feel like that's a super stereotype that didn't really happen all that much, because I didn't trade too much either.
Yeah.
I don't think I did either, yeah.
So we've finally cracked a conspiracy. Trading at lunch did not happen. You heard it here. So cool. Thanks, guys. After all of that, Ross, I think now is as good as time as any. What do you say we go ahead and take a look at the random 90s athlete of the week?
I'm all for it. It is time for Random 90s Guy of the Week. This has become my favorite part of the show. It's how we wrap up every single episode. And it's off to a good start, I'd say, so far.
You're saying the first 58 minutes of the show are your least favorite.
Yeah, I think I've said that 2 weeks in a row now. I like all minutes of the show, but I especially like 90s Guy of the Week because I love reminiscing about guys you forgot about. So
let's hear it. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Week 1, we had Jeff Montgomery, former closer for the Kansas City Royals. Last week, we had the great Dana Barros, NBA star turned rapper. This week, after all that talk about NHL video games last week, I decided to go to the rink for this one. And your random 90s Guy of the Week is Mr. Cameron Michael Neely, otherwise known as Cam Neely, the Boston Bruins left winger, the great goal scorer. He was a fighter, and one of my favorite names from 90s hockey because he was in the games we used to play, a member of the Bruins, and he was also like on the Eastern All-Stars, I want to say. And he was a right winger, excuse me, I said left a minute ago. But he always reminds me of that classic Vancouver Canucks logo with the skate and the red and the yellow. because he did play for them back in the 80s. But the reason he's kind of my guy of the week here is because I think
Tell people where if the name hasn't struck them
right.
yet, where do they know Cam Neely?
Right, and that's the thing. A lot of people our age, if you grew up in the 90s, I'm almost certain you've seen Cam Neely and didn't know it.
Who's the dead man that hit me with the salt shaker?
It's because he's otherwise known as Seabass from Dumb and Dumber.
What the hell do you want?
He was a good friend of the Farrelly brothers who made those movies, and so he appeared in a lot of their movies. But yeah, he was the famous Seabass in the bathroom stall, and the guy who gave him so much trouble but turned out to maybe be a homosexual. Not really sure how that storyline tied up. But Cam Neely, let's just go through a quick thing here. He's in the Hall of Fame, the Hockey Hall of Fame. A really good scorer for the Boston Bruins in his day, back-to-back 90-point seasons in 1989 and 90. Career was cut short, unfortunately, I think by an injury in the playoffs at some point, but he was a fighter, he was a scorer, he's an actor.
You can eat that?
So Cam Neely is your guy of the week. I don't know, Blake or JJ, if you guys have memories of seeing him in video games or anything like that?
I mean, I will go ahead and yes, he got a lot of play when I would play, early NHL games. Definitely knew the name, and he was. I mean, sometimes our random athletes, usually they turn out a lot better than we thought. Like even Jeff Montgomery, like we thought it was a random guy, and he was actually an all-star and had a good career. Cam Neely's definitely a guy I know of, but didn't really, haven't really thought of in a while, and definitely recognize him from Dumb and Dumber as Seabass, an all-time great character, great scene, great line. It looks like, though, I mean, he's been in a bunch of movies, though, where he, Me, Myself, and Irene, Dumb and Dumber 2. He was in D2, The Mighty Ducks, it made a cameo appearance as himself in the 8th season opening episode of Cheers. If you're wanting to, tune into that, it's called The Improbable Dream as a bar patron. But yeah, I mean, really I almost think of him as much as Seabass as I do as himself. So yeah, that's really what came to mind when you told me that.
Yeah, and he works in the front office for the Bruins now, and it just seems like a guy I'd want to get a beer with.
Make it 4 Boilermakers.
If he ever comes to Denver to play the Avs, Cam, if you're listening, come on down to the Springs. We'll have a beer. It's going to be great. It's going to be real great.
JJ, anything on Cam Neely?
I mean, just like you guys said, the first thing that popped in my head when you said Seabass was the famous phrase, kick his ass, Seabass.
Kick his ass, Seabass!
And I was looking him up as you guys were talking about it, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy was like in the NHL and stuff, and not only was he in the NHL, he was damn good.
He was good.
Yeah, but I don't recall him playing that much, but I definitely recall him from his acting career, if you want to call it that, I guess.
Sure, and that's why I love him, because a few are going to know him from hockey, but most are going to know him from his star turn as Seabass. I don't know if he had a last name, but Seabass.
Maybe Bass.
Yeah, Bass.
Maybe it was C Bass, so maybe that was it. So, anything else on Cam Neely here, Ross?
No, that's going to do it. I think we've broken new ground here, broken new ice by including a hockey player. So, off to a good start with these. I'm looking forward to next week already.
Every week is fun. Well, hey, before we close it up to JJ, thanks for joining us, man. A lot of good insight, both on school lunches and even, your fond memories of Cam Neely.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. Just want to say that I appreciate the documentary idea I now have on the school lunch economy. Think it's very promising.
Good. Well, that's what we try to do here. We try to give. We're constantly giving here on. I just kind of figured, well, hey, then that's going to go ahead and do it for us. A little bit of exciting news. I mean, it's not that exciting, but a little bit. Ross, we're actually going to be making our short jump over to iTunes. So now we're going to be available to get downloaded over there as of this week. So we're gonna go all in here.
Yeah, hoping so. I got to talk to my people at Apple to try and make it happen. And also maybe they'll sponsor us. Maybe Lunchables will sponsor us. We're still working on that. But and every time we cover one of these topics, it makes me realize there is so much stuff that we have to leave out. Stories and different little nuances that we think of, I'm sure, along the way. So let us hear it in the comments. Tell us about your Lunchables experience or your school lunches. If you met Cam Neely one time, like if he helped you change a tire, I don't know. But yeah, as always, let us hear it in the comments because I've already thought of several things on school lunches that we easily could have gone down the road on. So hoping, to hear from you guys. But yeah, Blake, iTunes coming up soon and Google Play. Moving up in the world, baby. Feels good.
Hey, on and on, one step at a time. And yeah, I mean, you said it. There are so many. We're still working on really cleaning up this podcast to really pinpoint certain things because there are going to be episodes, you better believe it, that are just specifically on just those things that do come up. Like we said, even could be an episode on gushers. Who knows?
Ooh, there we go.
Oh God, gushers are so good.
Who couldn't talk about gushers for forever? So anyway, until next time, thanks as always again, Ross. Thanks JJ, and thanks to everyone who has tuned in. We'll catch you next time on I Just Kinda Figured.